السلام عليكم. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmad, and I am happy to take you to the next section in Surah An-Nahl, chapter of the bees. But before we get into it, I must always explain that I am not an Arabic linguist, nor am I a Quranic scholar. I have not studied the Arabic language beyond school, and I have not studied the Quran. If anything, this is my first read-through of the Quran for a lot of it, and I am sharing my learning with you. The purpose of this channel is to be an educational one, where I learn about the Quran, share what I learned in hopes that you might learn something, but also, if you have a different perspective, please feel free to let me know. The more that we learn from each other, the better. That's all the intro that we need. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And off we go.
وقيل للذين اتقوا ماذا أنزل ربكم قالوا خيرا للذين أحسنوا في هذه الدنيا حسنة ولدار الآخرة خير ولنعم دار المتقين.
Okay, it starts off with a question, and it was said to those that are mindful, it doesn't say of God, but we understand it, that are mindful. And I kind of I feel like it's a bit more than, it of course does apply being mindful of God, but it's also just being mindful in general, and understanding that your actions have consequences, and that you should be careful. And you should not be arrogant, which seems to be the big theme these couple of chapters. So it's said to those who are mindful, what did your Lord send down? What did God send down? So what is God's message? What is what we said? They will say, I want to translate it slightly different. Yeah, the best is for those who do good in this world. في هذه الدنيا حسنة للذين أحسنوا. خير, good, the best, for those who improved. خير للذين أحسنوا في هذه الدنيا حسنة. It was so clear to me just a second ago. Say to those, it's the best or good is for those who do good in this world. And here they translate, there is goodness, حسنة. قالوا خير للذين أحسنوا في هذه الدنيا حسنة. So the verb is أحسنوا حسنة, which means they did the best good deed. So this is how we kind of understand it. So the best is for those who really went above and beyond to doing the best good deeds in this world. And their home is the hereafter. وَلَدَارُ الْآخِرَةِ. And the home, here we're talking about heaven. What happens the hereafter, after you die, and the home of the hereafter is better. It's understood better than this life. And what a beautiful home it is for the righteous. وَلَنِعْمَ دَارُ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Surely it's an excellent home of the righteous. So what is the main message being said here? For those that are mindful of God, they're asked, what did your God reveal? And essentially, they're saying all the best for those who do good in this world, or who excel in doing good in this world, and that the hereafter is better than this life, and what a wonderful home that is. And that's kind of the message. It's not like we deserve it because we're better. It's not about we're better. It's about those who do good. The message is those who do good will get to the end. And therein lies the beauty of it all. It's really that simple. Do good, be good, get a reward in the hereafter, and the hereafter reward is better than this life. What a wonderful home that is.
جنات عدن يدخلونها تجري من تحتها الأنهار لهم فيها ما يشاءون كذلك يجزي الله المتقين.
Alright, we have a very specific description about heaven that I want to talk about, because we do talk about heaven quite a lot in the Quran, but I want to mention what it says here. It says, Gardens of Eden, they enter it, and it flows from underneath it rivers, and that explanation, water seems to be the giver of life. So having rivers that flow from beneath the garden mean eternal life. It's kind of a concept of a never-ending source of life. And then it says, in it for them is whatever they wish, which is a very key phrase. I'm trying to think of, do I want to get super serious? Last episode was super serious and super sharp and super vulnerable. But obviously I wish for only one thing, and one thing only is to see my partner in the afterlife. But then comes in the question of who goes into the afterlife. And in the previous chapter, it mentioned it was the ones who do good and are righteous and believe in God and in the hereafter are the ones that make it into heaven. Let's not get complicated. It just says a description for heaven is whom whatever they wish for is they're in heaven. And also, like I'm also a sober person. I would love to smoke weed, for example. Weed and I are best friends, but I can't smoke weed ever again because it brings back symptoms of mania. And so what I would like is in heaven to smoke weed. And of course, it doesn't talk about weed. It does talk about wine in another chapter of the Quran where it says that they'll drink wine, but they won't be intoxicated by it, so to speak, which is kind of interesting. So I would love to have a weed that doesn't have the negative side effects. Anyway, and it is whatever you desire. Which then makes you think of what if a person who is righteous desires to kill or to hunt? Do they have forms of that in heaven? And I would imagine, yes. What if they have carnal desires, sinful desires? Does that come through in heaven? Ma yasha'un? Because like even people who do good and are righteous and believe, they can have desires that are maybe less than holy, or do we get liberated of those? And again, I might be philosophizing too much. Just in heaven is whatever you desire. But it's just, it brings up a lot of questions for me. And thus, God rewards the al-muttaqin. I don't know why here they're calling it the righteous when it's the al-taqwa. And it's the same word, ittaqu, the mindful. Here they're talking about mindful, and here they're talking about the righteous. I would assume it's the same word, al-taqwa, al-muttaqin, the ones who are mindful. But yeah, here again they translate it to rightful at the end of the phrase. And like if you are mindful of God and you are mindful of your behavior, then you are righteous, right? You are doing what's right because you're conscious and you're aware and you're being careful. But I feel that mindful is more of an accurate description than righteous, in my opinion.
الذين تتوفاهم الملائكة طيبين يقولون سلام عليكم ادخلوا الجنة بما كنتم تعملون.
Okay, and then here we get the opposite. In the previous section for this chapter, we had that the angels take those who disbelieve and they say, no, we didn't do anything wrong, and then God say, God knows what you did. Then here we have the opposite image. Those that take them in death, the angels, when they are pure, when they have good souls, those whose souls the angels take while they are virtuous. And they say to them, peace be upon you, enter heaven, paradise, because of what you used to do. And then in it comes the question that was kind of raised last episode, but we'll kind of take a look at it a bit more. When do people enter heaven and hell? Do they enter heaven and hell when they die, or do they enter heaven and hell at the end of Judgment Day? I believed, and I did a bit of research beforehand, and it seemed that, and there was another phrase that we have covered in chapter Yunus, where it talks about when it comes to Judgment Day, those that died will feel like only an hour has passed, right? And I feel like what it's saying at that point is that you only get into heaven or hell post Judgment Day, because judgment needs to be passed before you go in its specific directions. However, I feel like there are certain exceptions, and I feel like that's what these verses are telling us, because here it's taking those whom take them in death, the angels, while they are pure. طيبين, while they are virtuous. So like an image that comes to mind is the innocent, the children, the mentally afflicted. I feel like that's the case. And I feel like most people wait until Judgment Day to get to heaven or hell, but some people it's just so obvious based off of their lives that they were absolutely wretched or absolutely good. And I feel like those are the exceptions to the rule. That being said, I'm not sure. I don't know if you go to heaven and hell immediately after you die. I don't know if it applies to everyone. I don't know if there are differences in who goes. Because here it says, الَّذِينَ تَتَوَفَّاهُمْ, which means those whom take them in death. Because they're pure. Is it because all the pure, all the good, all the virtuous? What about those who are in between? Is it just the far edges of the curve? So like the purest and the most evil are the ones that are taken by the angels to heaven and hell immediately, and then the ones in the median curve wait till Judgment's Day. I don't know. But the angels take them when they're pure and they say, peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. As you can see what I say in the beginning of every... And it's the standard Muslim greeting around the world. Assalamu alaikum, which I love it. It's such a wonderful phrase. And they say enter paradise because of what you used to do. Either way, it's a beautiful thing to be a good person and taken by angels to heaven. I think that sounds very wonderful.
هل ينظرون إلا أن تأتيهم الملائكة أو يأتي أمر ربك كذلك فعل الذين من قبلهم وما ظلمهم الله ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون.
Okay, and now we start talking about something new, which is are they waiting just for the angels to come to them, or that the command of God to come, as in the decree of God, as in the punishment that was promised by the messengers, or that the angels should come to them? Like, is that what they're waiting for? Are they waiting for the command of God, or are they waiting for the angels to come to them? And then it describes, thus did the ones from before them. The same thing. We've seen the stories. We've been covering these stories quite a lot in the past couple of chapters about those who were just waiting either for show us angels if you're telling the truth, or show us the punishment if you're telling the truth, or show us that we will get, we will suffer for our actions. And this is what has come before them. And then here it says, and God did not wrong them, but it was themselves that they wronged. Which I find it interesting that it's talking about this. It feels like this whole section comes out of the blue. But I feel like the next verse is going to explain. Yeah. But yeah, I guess now we're just talking about those who are waiting for the command of God or for angels. As did the ones before them, and nobody wrongs themselves. No, God doesn't wrong anybody, but they wrong themselves.
فأصابهم سيئات ما عملوا وحاق بهم ما كانوا به يستهزئون.
Ooh. Okay, so it struck them their evil deeds. Their evil deeds struck them of what they did. فَأَصَابَهُمْ سَيِّئَاتٌ بِمَا عَمِلُوا. Oh, the evil deeds of what they did struck them, and it surrounded with them, and they were surrounded by what they used to mock. They were surrounded by. So then the evil consequences of their deeds overtook them, and they were overwhelmed by what they used to ridicule. By surrounded is more accurate, because here in the previous example they were talking about send the command of God, right? You're going to send us some torment, some torture, and then essentially it came all around them. Overwhelm them is also kind of accurate, but I feel like surrounded feels more literal. Okay.
وقال الذين أشركوا لو شاء الله ما عبدنا من دونه من شيء نحن ولا آباؤنا ولا حرمنا من دونه من شيء كذلك فعل الذين من قبلهم فهل على الرسل إلا البلاغ المبين.
And those who used to associate partners with gods, used to pray to anything else but God, said, if God had willed, we would not have worshipped anything other than Him. We would not have worshipped anything other than Him. Not us, nor our forefathers, nor would we have forbidden without Him in anything. Nor would have forbidden anything without Him. And again, this is like the disbelievers. When the time comes, when judgment is clear, and they've been proven wrong, they go, oh, if God had willed, we would have been good, we would have been bad. And if we saw in the previous example, God didn't wrong them, they wronged themselves. And here it continues by saying, thus did the ones from before them, the people from before, the polytheists from before them had said this time and time again. If God had wanted, we would have been willed. If God had wanted, we would have willed. Again, putting the responsibility on God. And then the question that is an answer to this, to their statements, and it's kind of like a rhetorical question that God says, which is very powerful and very profound. Is it upon the messengers to do anything except convey clearly the conveyance that is clear, to deliver the message clearly? Which says several things in one statement. One, that all those people received the messenger and they were told, by the way, this is the answer, that's what you should do and that's what you shouldn't do. But their arrogance caused them to not listen and ignore, and then they're still going to blame God for this perspective. And B, is the simplicity of it is the reason why they wrong themselves is it's not the messenger's responsibility to get them to accept or believe. The messenger's responsibility is to deliver the message, and then it's up to them to believe who they want to believe. So critical thinking is what is being asked at all points in the Quran, which is kind of very powerful. And we see this time again. Do you not reflect? Do you not think? Do you not use your minds? And blaming somebody else for the choice that you made is you wronging yourself, which is what this whole verse is talking about. I know in the Quran it says multiple times, if God didn't want you to be willed, and it's going to say it in a second, if God didn't want you to be guided, then you're not going to be guided. But from our perspective, our choice matters, and it's kind of the same thing as our choice being in fate, right? Our choice is the we write the story, and then we look back at the story being written, and we blame God for the choices that we made. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to make it anymore. I don't think I'm making it clear because I'm also not articulating it as best. But generally, the polytheists are going to say it's God's fault, and God says all the messengers had to do is deliver the message. If they did that, it's on you. Is what is not being said. What's not being said is it's on them. But it's being said in the previous verses. And here it continues to describe what the messengers were instructed to do.
وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ هَدَى اللَّهُ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ حَقَّتْ عَلَيْهِ الضَّلَالَةُ فسيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين.
I'm always kind of curious by what that last phrase means. Anyway, it says, and certainly we had sent to every nation a messenger that they should worship God and avoid the false deities and the false gods. And then from those people that were told by the messengers to worship God and avoid the false deities, from among them were those who God guided, and from among them who حقت عليه الضلالة, which means it came true upon him the misguidance. The others were destined to stray is an interesting way of saying it, but it's like, yeah, it was justified isn't exactly the right. حقت عليه الضلالة, which means, yeah, it prevailed upon him the misguidance, kind of like that. And then it says something that I always I wonder, because I've explained it in terms of like the pyramids and stuff, but I wonder why it constantly gets repeated. So travel in the earth and see how it was the end of the deniers. Even in Jordan, we have like Roman architecture, which is like, yeah, leftovers from the Roman days, which is kind of funny. Because you kind of see samples of a fallen nation. And then you have the pyramids in Egypt, and then you supposedly have the Dead Sea. You have like lots of ruins, and you have a lot of stories that tell you what these ruins are. And the question is, what do you believe? I do have, for instance, like the big question that I think a lot of people struggle with is, whom do I believe, right? How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know someone else is telling the lies? And I feel like the answer comes down to belief in a weird way, and hearing the truth and believing it, but I'm not sure, and I'm not gonna extrapolate. I'm just gonna focus on what is ahead of us. Just my question is, so even if you travel and you see all the ruins, how do you know that this is because people were denying the signs of God, right? That's how the thought came to be. How do you know that this was the end of the deniers if you don't believe? You know? Interesting.
إن تحرص على هداهم فإن الله لا يهدي من يضل وما لهم من ناصرين.
And therein comes back to that verse. If you watch over your like particular, your keen is a better explanation than you desire. Because you feel like you're like to guard over something, to watch over something, to make sure it happens. So if you guard over their guidance, then indeed God does not guide whom. It says here who he lets go astray, but it also kind of applies in the way that I've explained it before. The person who wishes to be led astray, God will not guide them. So I kind of understand both meanings of this phrase. And they will have no helpers, no victors, no people to protect them and save them. Again, this kind of feels like, yes, there's no free will. But if you marry it with the verse above, that God doesn't wrong anybody, but they wrong themselves, the idea is, in the end of the day, your choice matters. And the fact that you choose misguidance, in a way, God would know that you would choose misguidance, and he will let you go astray. It's kind of like this. I always talk about it being bi-directional, right? It's not that God makes the choice and you follow. It's you and God make the choice at the same time, so to speak. God knows everything, right? So the second you make the choice for, it's not even the second, simultaneously, when you make the choice to be misguided, God will misguide you. When you make the choice to be guided, God will guide you. But then you kind of look at these verses and it says, indeed, God does not guide whom he lets go astray. Because it doesn't say he lets go astray. Men yudil. Allahu la yahdi. God does not guide men yudil, who's led astray. So there's a lot of ways to kind of interpret this. One of them being that you have no free will, but I don't think that's the right answer. I think the answer is both at the same time. It's God's choice and your choice, and your choice is God's choice, and God's choice is your choice in a weird way. if you wanted to, at any point in time. And this is what the messenger is saying. This is what the message says to everybody. You can believe right now, and you cannot believe. What you do is entirely your responsibility. And God will enhance that ability. It's kind of like the idea of like, I'm too tired to go to the gym, but going to the gym gives you energy to go to the gym. It's kind of like this concept of the more you do, the more that you'll get guided. The more that you seek guidance, the more you'll get guided. And the more that you seek misguidance, the more that you'll be misguided. They're symbiotic. They're mutual. They happen at the same time. That's what I'm saying. But most importantly is that they do not have any helpers. Very interesting.
وأقسموا بالله جهد أيمانهم لا يبعث الله من يموت بلى وعدا عليه حقا ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون.
This part's clear, but the next verse confused me. So the polytheists, the ones who disbelieve, they swear by God with the strongest of their oaths. They're like, we promise, I swear from the bottom of my soul, from my everything, I promise you, God will not resurrect us after we die. Which is kind of like, I never understand the atheist claim. I never understand that nothing will happen after you die. Nothing. You're going to be black. I understand I don't know. I understand that I believe that something will happen because these books have told me. I don't understand that I know nothing will happen. How do you know nothing will happen? How do you believe that nothing will happen? And some people apparently hear us saying they're swearing by their strongest oaths that we will not, God will not resurrect anyone. It's like, I get the irony of saying that I believe that God will do this, but I believe that God will do this because I have a source that tells me that God will do this. Did somebody tell them what will happen after death? And who saw after death? How do they know? God, in his words, is claiming to be the creator of everything and claiming to know what's happening, and I'm choosing to believe that this is true, right? And I believe in God's words. This is where I get my idea from. But where do you get your idea that you absolutely will not be raised? And how do you know what will happen after you die? It's just mind-blowing to me. And this verse we kind of covered with Safa and I. What is the oath that the disbelievers make? The oath that they make is that we will not be raised and they will be disproven. And it says, nay, it's a promise upon it that is in truth, but most people do not know. This is all fine and dandy, clear, makes sense. The next verse confused me.
ليبين لهم الذي يختلفون فيه وليعلم الذين كفروا أنهم كانوا كاذبين.
The exact phrase is, so it's made clear for them that they differ. الذين يختلفون ليبين لهم الذي يختلفون فيه. So it makes clear to them that which they differ in, and so that those who disbelieve may know that they were liars. Okay, now it makes so much sense. So they make the oath, and they make this kind of... I get it now. So they make this oath so that God can prove to them that they're liars. And it's not like, they're saying, we don't think that anything's going to happen after this. Some people are like making the biggest oath of their lives. And that is so that it may make it clear for them what they differ in, and so that they know that they were liars. Essentially, you will remember this oath by the time you die, and then you'd be like, "Oh, I did say that, didn't I? That was dumb of me, wasn't it?" So they make this oath to hold themselves accountable, which is kind of interesting. Very, very interesting perspective.
إنما قولنا لشيء إذا أردناه أن نقول له كن فيكون.
It's a very beautiful two-word statement. إنما قولنا شيء لشيء. Only our word to something, if we intend it, is what that we say, if we ever want something, only a word of us is needed for it to happen. If we want something, then only a word that we have to say, and the word is kun fayakun. Be, and then it is. And it's much more powerful in Arabic, so be and it shall be. And so be and it will be, I think, is a more accurate, because it also kun fayakun, it's the same verb, so be and is and be are the same, but it sounds better, so be and it will be. Be and it will be is the statement, kun fayakun. So it's kind of like, this is the command by God. If he wants to will something into existence, he says, be and it will be. Like, it's just a word of God can change everything and change the universe. And yeah.
والذين هاجروا في الله من بعد ما ظلموا لنبوئنهم في الدنيا حسنة ولأجر الآخرة أكبر لو كانوا يعلمون.
And those who emigrated in the way of God from after they were wronged, then we will surely give them a position in this world that is good, but the reward in the hereafter is greater if they only knew. The first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is the time of the Prophet. That those who immigrated, even though they were persecuted by the people around the Prophet because they were trying to spread the Islam, and I think this absolutely applies to them, but I think it applies to a little bit more than just them. And specifically those who, when they were wronged and immigrated, I don't know if it means a literal immigration. It, of course, can mean the literal immigration, but it also means to, like, uproot your everything and move to some other direction or path or cause. I want to say it's like strive, but it's very specifically about moving, right? And the promise here is that those who were wronged and they immigrated with God after they were wronged, then they will surely get some sort of position in this world, which is very beautiful. But the reward of the hereafter is bitter. If it's better if only they knew. But if they are immigrating in the way of God, then surely they should know. But it's also, like, not necessarily the case. Sometimes people can have varying degrees of belief about varying aspects of religion. So, for instance, they might know that God is real and they might still strive to fight for God, but they might not believe in all parts of what God has revealed to them. Yeah. That's why it says, if only they knew at the end. I think that makes sense.
الذين صبروا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون.
Those that were patient and upon their Lord, upon their God, they put their trust. It's a continuation of those who emigrated. And a description of those who did good.
وما أرسلنا من قبلك إلا رجالا نوحي إليهم فاسألوا أهل الذكر إن كنتم لا تعلمون.
I always wonder about what that phrase means specifically, but it says, we have not sent from before you except men that we revealed to them. So, men seems to be all messengers. There was a question, are all messengers men? It seems to be that all messengers were men, which I find it very interesting. And then it says, so ask Ahl al-Dhikr, the people of remembrance, the people of knowledge, the people of awareness, if you do not know. In kuntum la ta'lamun. Ahl al-Dhikr. So here they've translated it to, then ask those who have knowledge of the scripture. So it's kind of talking about the priests, the rabbis, and the imams. But I I don't know. Ahl al-dhikr. It also could mean the people of remembrance, the people of mention, the people who are mentioned. But I can't imagine that's the case because not a lot of people that are alive today are those that are mentioned in the verses in the books. So it's got to be the people of remembrance. But is it the people who are studying the scriptures, or is it the people who are remembering the words? Ahl al-dhikr, the reminder, the people of the reminder, the people of... Yeah, I've heard it explained to me as if just those who study scripture, the priests, the rabbis, the imams. But I don't feel like it's just that. I feel like there's more to this specific phrase. Ahl al-dhikr.
بالبينات والزبر وأنزلنا إليك الذكر لتبين للناس ما نزل إليهم ولعلهم يتفكرون.
So it starts by saying with the clear proofs and the books, which is interesting that al-Zubur is the books because it talks about al-Zabur at another point. So here I guess it's connecting it to the people of the reminder, the people of Ahl al-Dhikr. So ask the people of the reminder, if you don't know, ask them with the clear proofs and the books. And then it's just a very interesting expression. And then it continues to say, and we have sent down upon you al-dhikr. Again, it's that word, al-dhikr, al-dhikr, al-dhikri, al-dhikra. Here it says the remembrance. We have sent down with you the reminder. Sometimes the books are kind of referred to as the dhikr. Sometimes, the holy books are kind of referred to as dhikr. And we sent down to you the dhikr so that you may make it clear to the people what has been sent down to them so that they may reflect. We have sent down to you the reminders so that you may explain to the people what has been revealed for them, and perhaps they will be reflect. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتَبَيَّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا أُنزِلَ عَلَيْكَ. Interesting. I mean, an idea just came to my mind. What if this isn't talking about the Quran? What if this is talking about what's going to be revealed to a future messenger, or maybe all messengers? I don't know. And then there are certain people that are keepers of this explanation, and thus you get Ahl al-Dhikr. I mean, that feels right. That somehow something is going to get brought down that helps people to understand. Because it says to make clear to people what has been sent down to them. Because do you feel like the Quran has made it clear to people what has been sent down to the Gospels and the Torah? I haven't gotten to that far. I haven't been able to use the Quran to understand the Torah and the Gospel. So maybe it's possible that that's the case. Maybe that's what it's talking about. But it could also talk about something that we have not yet seen. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ. Interesting. So that you may make it clear to them what has been sent down. Which I think would be great. If we could receive something that helps us understand all the scripture and understand what it all means, that would resolve a lot of issues in the world. Because while the Quran is miraculous and studying it is fantastic and it's beautiful, there are still a lot of disagreements in terms of what do a lot of things mean and what do the outcomes mean. And for instance, some people use some verses to attack homosexuals. Some people use some verses to attack the freedoms of women. So there's some people use them to pervert it and create things like ISIS, where they can create terrorism. and I'm obviously focusing on Muslims, but obviously the Jewish faith has people doing perverted things in Jewish names, and same thing with Christian faiths. Everyone seems to be perverting the meanings of their scriptures to mean something that doesn't there. So maybe that's what a dhikr means. But it could also mean the Quran, and it could just mean that the Quran is going to reveal what the Torah and the Gospels are, and I could just be mistaken. But I don't know, I feel like I'm onto something.
أفأمن الذين مكروا السيئات أن يخسف الله بهم الأرض أو يأتيهم العذاب من حيث لا يشعرون.
This is a dangerous question. Do they feel secure, those who plotted the evil deeds, do they feel secure against God caving in with them the earth, or coming to them with torment from where they do not perceive? Do they really feel so secure? And it's again, like, sometimes I say it's sassy, but sometimes it feels like it's a serious threat, yo. Do you feel safe? It's the Clint Eastwood. Do you feel lucky? But it's not. Obviously, Lucky is a little bit even softer. And even though it's like a badass action movie, it's very soft. It's like, do you really feel secure where you stand? There is something powerful in that threat. Especially if you can see what God's capable of and what God will do. It's terrifying. Whew.
أو يأخذهم في تقلبهم فما هم بمعجزين.
Or that he may seize them in their going to and fro, turning back and front as they go about their day. Or they're switching, or so he takes them when they're switching their night and day, going. I can understand how they're going about their business. I can understand how they're going to and fro, how they're moving back and forth. تقلبهم, kind of like, but it can also mean like they're switching, they're kind of changing. I would imagine that the Occam's razor, or he will not seize them while they're going about their day, makes the most sense. فما هم بمعجزين, then they will not be able to escape. Yeah, it's terrifying.
أو يأخذهم على تخوف فإن ربكم لرؤوف رحيم.
Or that he takes them on a gradual wasting, like bit by bit, sap them of strength, sap them of power, sap them of sanity, sap them of all their abilities. And I feel like you see this sometimes with empires. Empires do kind of fade into the background and disappear. I don't know why the Persian Empire came to mind, because you don't really hear much about the Persian Empire. You hear a lot about the Roman Empire, the British Empire, but not so much about the Persian Empire. It's very interesting. But indeed, your Lord is full of kindness and most merciful. Ooh. How do you deliver threat after threat after threat and then say full of kindness and most merciful? Well, I think kind of the point is, if God had wanted, he would make them suffer right now. But there's a reason for their existence, and there's a reason for the struggle, and there's a reason why we're going through all of this. And it is kind of a kindness from God that they're not being struck down where they stand right now. But I don't know if it's necessarily a kindness to them. Maybe the kindness is how humans learn, or how we reach to the point, or how do we get all humans to believe the punishment has to be delivered at exactly the right moment, exactly at the right time, to exactly the right people in exactly the right way. And in that is the kindness and mercy. Yeah. Such a juxtaposition. Threat, kindness and mercy. Wow.
أولم يروا إلى ما خلق الله من شيء يتفيأ ظلاله عن اليمين والشمائل سجدا لله وهم داخرون.
This is a very philosophical question. Do they not see that towards God, إلى ما خلق الله, towards what God has created, from anything inclines their shadows of everything that God created. Their shadows incline to the right and to the left, prostrating to God while they are humble. The shadows of everything prostrating. This is the second time we've seen this example in the Quran, that the shadows are prostrating. And I've heard someone explain it to me that this is because when they pray, their shadows are prostrating as well. But I don't feel like this is what this verse is saying. I feel like this is saying the shadow itself is a form of prostration. Like when you're outside, the sun is above, and all of our shadows are on the ground bowing. I think that's the image that's being shared. And that the shadows of everything are humble. Which is kind of like helping us think of who has kept the lights on, who has us standing. The fact that we are, I just imagine like a book unfolding and we are standing with a shadow cast upon it, and the idea that there is light and there is us and there is a shadow on the ground is reminding you that you are a slave to God. You are a slave to the story maker, to the grand designer of all things. That we are all slaves. And then it continues and expands that by saying,
ولله يسجد ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من دابة والملائكة وهم لا يستكبرون.
So it says, and to God prostrate whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth, from moving creatures. Dabba is like anything that roams the earth, that moves the earth and moves about. Everything prostrates to God, and the angels, and they are not arrogant. And here I did not imagine humans a part of the moving creatures. Here I imagined the cattle, I imagined the dogs, anything with legs that roams the earth. And it says everything prostrates to God. And I'm trying to think of it from an animal perspective. Yeah, and the angels also bow down. And the key phrase, while they are not arrogant. And again, that seems to be the main theme. Arrogance, pride is the biggest sin. But everything prostrates before God? How do all the moving creatures prostrate before God? I'm just very curious. The angels, I know, that makes the most sense, but how does every moving creature prostrate before God? Because it talked about the shadows prostrating, and I just imagine the light having the shadow on the ground. Automatically, that's a form of prostrating and bowing. But how do all the moving creatures prostrate without being arrogant? And then it continues to explain, and I feel like this does describe animals quite well.
يخافون ربهم من فوقهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون.
They fear God, their Lord, from above them, and they do what they are commanded. Which is kind of interesting, because here it lumps up moving creatures with angels. And we always knew that the angels follow God's command. I never thought about the moving creatures following God's command. I mean, obviously they do, but like it feels like there's a specific relationship between the moving creatures, between the horses, the bears, the cows. There seems to be, like, if God was to give them a command, they would do something. It's a very interesting visual. Cool. Interesting episode. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. As usual, I always end with صدق الله العلي العظيم. And I thank you, and I will see you guys tomorrow. مع السلامة. Bye.